Question from Sargon of Akkad. Has anyone noticed how based Elon Musk is now?
Has anyone been paying attention to just how radical Elon Musk has been on Twitter recently? I don't know whether you've noticed, but he's tweeting some pretty...
I've got news for you, Carl. You think Elon Musk and what he's saying is radical. You have no fucking idea. Elon Musk is only catching up now to where a lot of the people on the alt-right were about maybe 5 to 10 years ago. We're going to see any Bowden tonight, by the way, Rex. You know what? Let's get a tab up for that. We can get to it. We'll just go over to news and politics here in the Castle Rexworth Discord. By the way, if you haven't joined, make sure you join the Castle Rexworth Discord. Post that link across all platforms. You can rely on me to poke you any time to watch some more of him. Fair enough. I'm having to scroll quite a bit because we did lots of Japan posting over the earthquakes that they had earlier this week, though it looks like the danger has passed for the most part. Let's see. Oh, here we are. Manchester speech, March 2009. We'll get that in the queue here. But anyways, back to Sargon.
hardline things. Now this is by far the sort of softest of it. Why is a false history of slavery taught in American schools? Great question. Great question. Why have we allowed leftists to educate our children, create a false narrative of what happened, and it...
Why have we even allowed leftists access to society in general? I feel like that one little blonde girl in that one anime where she just says the communists, just blow the shit out of them. Like, why do we even allow them access to our society at all? I mean, I personally believe the moment you start expressing any sort of sympathy for communism, or start behaving like some sort of communist radical, and it's not in the service of a nationalist cause or to the betterment of the people, the genuine betterment of the people, then honestly, I think your rights are just forfeit at that point. And I've sort of come to that just because I'm tired of dealing with these bastards. I'm really just sick of dealing with these bastards. Tanya the Evil, that's the one, yeah. I'm just sick of dealing with them. We can't peacefully coexist with them. We can't live side by side in peace with them because they hate us and they want us dead. They want to destroy and pervert everything that we hold dear in the service of their never-ending revolution.
It's not like you can't point to the narrative and say the actual narrative of what has happened and say, well, there are bad things. Of course there are bad things in there, but not uniquely evil things. And that's what the left have been trying to do. Create the narrative that the left and white people in particular are somehow uniquely evil throughout world history. Now, this is just not true. White people are not uniquely evil. Lots of evil has happened long before white people were anything anyone ever talked about anywhere.
I think if you were to compare atrocities committed by certain peoples, certain races, you would find that white people are practically saints. The real barbarians in the world do not have white skin.
Fact. Really terrible things have happened all over the world, and most of the time they just continued. And occasionally you would get some king or prince or lawgiver who would be particularly magnanimous, particularly compassionate, and they would put an end to these things. I mean, one thing to look up is, one leader to look up is Ashoka the Great, who had a vast empire in India, massacred many, many people, and then became a pacifist after he had subdued all of his enemies out of guilt for the blood that he had shed.
That just sounds like weakness to me. All of a sudden you feel bad about all the people that you killed. It's like, brother, do you not understand how sausage is made? That's war, and very often that is the way human beings historically have achieved power. And for you to all of a sudden have an attack of conscience like that, that just shows weakness more than anything. And especially if you show that publicly, your enemies are going to use that against you. And they will eventually manipulate you into a corner, and then they'll just shank you, man. To me, anyone who doesn't take an Oswald Spengler, Francis Parker, Yockey sort of pragmatic and revolutionary nationalist view on things like communism, those are the ones who need to be brushed. The others just need to let go of their hammer and sickle nostalgia waving, and they're good to go. Yeah, some people, they're LARPers. A lot of people, you get enough drinks in them, whether it be Russian vodka or anything else, and they will probably just admit that, yeah, it's just a LARP, and it's kind of a cope, because they're losers that are jealous of other people's success, and so they start hammer and sickle posting. Nobody ever talks about Genghis Khan or Stalin. It's always the Austrian painter. Yeah, Stalin killed far more than Hitler ever did, and Genghis Khan killed more than Stalin and Hitler combined. Or Mao, yeah. Mao is single-handedly responsible for so many of the deaths. I think the 200 million plus death count of communism, that was Mao who did that. Examples would be most national Bolsheviks in Russia, or even most modern leftists in Eurasia. They know how power and family works, unlike the West, yes.
This is an unusual person throughout history. Most conquerors, most civilizations didn't care. And so the fact that European civilization does have that Christian compassion and charity within it is one of the things that actually marks it apart from most of the other civilizations. I mean, if we talk about slavery in particular, the impulse to end slavery primarily came from Christianity. And it was filtered through the sort of English lens of rights and liberties, and it ends up in the liberal worldview that slavery is wrong in every case, which of course I agree that it is, because I'm an Englishman.
Yes. But learn to work your own fields. Learn to pick your own cotton. Stop using slaves. It's not only morally wrong, but there's just a better way to go about doing it, in a way that makes everyone more prosperous over the long run.
Why is a false history being taught? The answer is, of course, to demoralize the United States. Yes. To make sure that the people of the United States will not fight for their own country.
Yes, they use the whole specter of slavery as a way to demoralize people. They use racism and sexism and xenophobia and homophobia and Islamophobia. These are all words that they use to deceive humans, because they know that they won't fight back against those sorts of things as hard. And eventually, you have to just learn to not care about it. Even to some extent, wear those words almost like armor. Be proud of it. Really turn the tables on them, and then you'll get them running scared. And that's when they really start to make their mistakes. Funny how humanists always want an economic and racial underclass, but slavery was so bad, guys. Just the American and European kind, of course, is better now because we say the word diversity. Yeah, it's now the battle is to try and stop the creation of economic and racial underclasses. But just because you say the word diversity doesn't make it better. Cultural enrichment doesn't make it better. It's funny, the American and European participation in the slave trade, everyone talks about, everyone's propagandized in school about how bad it is. And nobody wants to talk about mass migration and the creation of new underclasses in the Western world. Underclasses that look good on paper, look good for the bottom line, make big line go up, good for the GDP, or so we're told, and then turns out, no, they're actually a net drain on society. Those short-term profits that you might have had, they evaporate really quickly, and then you're stuck with a group of people that They're not really as much of a compliant underclass as you think. And before long, you're going to have civil unrest, caused by those same people that you tried to create an underclass out of. It's another golem that the so-called wizards of smart, the overlords, have created, trying to sell it to everyone with flowery language about diversity and inclusion and equity, when in reality, it's all about cutting corners to make big line go up and allow them to line their pockets and gain greater levels of power.
The integrity of their country, for the possession of their own country, because the idea is to make them feel reviled by their own country, to make them feel grossed out about it, to make them feel as if the country is not something they want to be associated with, which is a pretty bloody evil thing to do, isn't it? It's absolutely insane to poison people's minds before they're able to make rational decisions of their own into thinking that their own country is something that they should avoid. And this is the point. As Hunter Ash here has said, is a nation a specific people united by heritage, tradition and shared values, or is it any arbitrary entity defined by paperwork? This is the core political issue of our time, which is absolutely correct, and Elon has clearly picked his side. Members of a nation must have a common culture, or it is not a nation. I agree. And that puts him firmly on the right. So the libertarian tech bro Elon seems to have evolved rather swiftly. Remember back at the beginning of the year when he was talking about the H1Bs? In a year, he's realised, oh wait, actually there is more to a nation than merely productivity. And actually, if you look at it, yes.
There always has been. There is more to a nation and a society than productivity and GDP. It's actually a lot of intangible factors that quite often cannot be quantified in any way, can sometimes only be vaguely described with words on paper. I mean, it really is just that intangible. You sort of know it when you see it, and you are especially more aware of it when it's gone. And that is what a lot of us have woken up to, is that so much of this, so much of it is gone. That sort of cohesiveness, that common culture, it just, quite often, and as we have found out the hard way, it can disappear in the blink of an eye. If the economy is all that matters to you, you're not anti-capitalist. If the economy is all that matters to someone, I dare say they are not human. Because there is more to a nation, a society, a people, a part of the world, than the economy. Don't get me wrong, the economy is important, but it is not the end-all be-all.
It has to be. A nation is a group of people who are related by not only blood, but also history, also ancestry, culture, norms. The way that they view the world are all things that bind the people together. And Elon is arriving at that point. And so he goes on about this. It's deeply weird the absolute top priority for a lot of American and European politicians is bringing in millions of unvetted third world migrants. They could have shut down right-wing populism entirely by compromising on this issue, but they refuse. And Elon...
They honestly believe if they just flood the zone, just take people and use them as weapons to flood the zone, that they can eventually just wipe out any opposition. And for a while it was working. Trouble is, when a group starts to notice they're becoming a minority, they start to sort of develop a bunker mentality. They start to become more radicalized. They start to become more racially conscious. And they also start to organize. All the things that globalists had hoped white people would never do. It doesn't matter if it causes peace or violence. The fact is, it's still happening. The fact it's still happening is a sign it's still making money and is useful.
Thinks this is about importing a left-wing voting bloc that depends on government handouts. Now, that is true on one level, but on another level, it's also about the overall mission, which is destroying the European nations. It is destroying the United States, destroying Canada, destroying Australia, destroying Western Europe. They are on the universalist position that any amount of parochial feeling towards one's own nation is essentially an inevitable path towards Nazism, and so destroying the nations prevents that from ever happening again. And
so scared of that, and in their fear, they actually create what they are trying to destroy. This is why I said earlier in the week on X that leftist ideas can only exist in a vacuum. They cannot brook any sort of opposition. It has to be destroyed. Hence why they just persecute it relentlessly. They try to persecute, oppress, and destroy any and all opposition. And in the process, they effectively create their own opposition, and they eventually sow the seeds for their own destruction. It is a never-ending cycle with these people. Vivian, welcome in. How are you?
it is true that they do want to use these people as voting blocks in order to gain power and leverage themselves to be able to further destroy the nation, but primarily, it's actually about the destruction of the nation. And he's arriving at some very important points that are inflection points. When you decide that murder is much worse than words, suddenly all of the words that they use against you mean very little.
The words they do use against you mean very little, because to them words are just a means to deceive people. Words only have as much meaning and as much power as we are willing to assign to them. And for too long we have made the fatal error of assigning a lot of power to the words that leftists use. Whereas if we simply and mercilessly treat them like demons from Freeran and understand that words are just their means to deceive humans and relentlessly pursue their destruction accordingly, we can win. I have blurb now. Excellent.
Which I think is very good and admirable that he's arrived there, because a lot of people don't arrive there. Piers Morgan hasn't arrived there. Like, none of our politicians, apart from
Never
Rupert
will,
Lowe,
probably.
have arrived there. And so, you know, saying, well...
Unless, of course, the prevailing political winds make it profitable for Piers Morgan to start aping right-wing talking points, in which he will. But just understand, he doesn't mean a word that he says. He's just a fraud and a shill, like so many others.
Hurty words are bad. Getting past that is significant, and it's good that we are. Your government is taking money out of your pocket to house people who would rape your children. This might be a blunt way to put it, but it's simply the truth.
Yes, especially if you live in the United Kingdom. UK citizens, your tax money is being taken out of your pocket and being used to house people who would rape and kill you and your children. That is just a simple truth. The simple, brutal truth. It all starts to end when you stop putting up with it. But apparently, much of the UK is not there yet. They still want to put up with it. When they stop putting up with it, start getting organized, stop falling for containment tricks, and start realizing that, oh, you can just do things, they may have a chance. Germany suffered the same as England, and no one in power that can make a change cares. No, too many people who are in power just do not care. If anything, they take pride in not listening to the people, in looking down upon them, and if anything, trying to make their lives worse. In terms of migrants, or not just in terms of migrants, in terms of everything. The ruling class truly has come to look at the people they rule over with absolute contempt, as a bunch of blithering idiots, bunch of backwoods, inbred hayseeds, who don't know their asses from a hole in the ground, and they know better because they are the ruling class, they are the experts, so they are to be listened to, they are to be treated with deference and respect and fealty. They are to be treated like gods that walk among men, and they are not to be questioned in all of their infinite wisdom. They will make all of the decisions for us, and the people will have an occasional vote every few years just to give the illusion of democracy. Klaus Schwab is a prime example of that. If anyone deserves the Luigi Mangione treatment...
Yeah, it is. It's, as Elon points out, the brutal truth. You are paying for your own replacement from people who will literally put you in jail if you complain about the potential rapists that they house next to you. Like, this, genuinely, this is true. And Elon is not sugarcoating it when he retweets all of this stuff. And this is obviously inspired by the series of rapes that have happened in Britain in the past week that have been awful, absolutely awful. And here's Elon just raising awareness from Nigel Farage. Thank goodness it's being talked about. And he points out, yes, the Mayor of London...
And honestly, it goes a long way just talking about it, just informing people about it. Spreading the word is an important first step, but we have to go beyond merely spreading the word, otherwise this all just devolves into circle jerks and bitch fests. The next stage is to get organized. Get organized. Take to the streets. Make your voices heard. Let your presence be known. And if the government or police start to give you trouble, resist them. Because you're not just fighting against mass migration and the people who would try to create ethnic blocks to ultimately wipe out white people. You're going up against your own government, the same people that enabled those ethnic blocks to come in the first place. We are in for the fight of our lives, chat. And we are going to be fighting a war on two fronts, not only against invaders, but also against the governments that let those invaders in. Because believe me, just as those ethnic blocks hate you and want you dead, your governments most especially despise you and want you dead. And the only reason you are being kept alive is so that they could leech substance off of you in the form of your tax money. Because let's face it, you're the only ones that are really contributing to the welfare state.
London does hate white people, that's true. With no question of it. I mean, he literally said that white people don't represent real Londoners. So, yeah. Sadiq Khan does hate white people, there's no question of it. And so Elon's got to the point where it's like, you know what, I don't want any more anti-white propaganda. Now you'll notice that he is capitalizing the W in white here. That means that this is a...
That comes from AP, Associated Press style guidelines, which in turn have had an effect on how all news articles are written, where they will capitalize every other race, but they will keep white, the W, lowercase. It's a subtle little insult, a subtle little indignity, but it's yet another brick in the wall for them and their campaign of propaganda against white people. That's definitely Canada with their MAID program. Oh yes, most of the people that end their lives through the MAID program just so happen to be white. And the Canadian government is doing nothing to slow that down. If anything, they want it accelerated, because they too want infinity migrants. For Canada, the future is brown.
Nominative, not merely a descriptive noun that he is using, as in the noun stipulates, denotes. It has a normative aspect to it. It describes a nation. And this is something that the alt-right was trying to meme into existence back in 2017. It didn't work back then, but Elon has just begun using it repeatedly. And I mean, you'll notice that Matt Walsh does not capitalize the whites. He's using it in a descriptive term, which is perfectly valid, obviously. But I think that this has been done by Elon on purpose, because you'll remember the New York Times, Washington Post, all the big media outlets during the time of George Floyd decided to start capitalizing the B in black to denote that the black Americans are a separate nation within a nation, to essentially give them an impetus to demand a kind of secession, which I think is reflected now in Elon capitalizing the W in white. I've noticed that a lot of the sort of younger Gen Xers, Elon I think is what, 51, 52, something like that. It's not terribly old for a Gen Xer. I'm the youngest of the Gen Xers at 46, and Elon's quite young for a Gen Xer, and Gen Xers can go up to about 65 now. But I've noticed the younger Gen Xers...
Yeah, the boomers are slowly fading away because they are absolute geriatrics. They're beyond pensioners, but now we are living... It almost seems hard to believe, but we are living in an age where Gen Xers are becoming pensioners. It's one of those things you never really thought you'd see the day, but it's happening. And we're also quickly approaching a time where a lot of millennials myself included, are approaching middle age. Not sure where the time went, but there it is.
Can become quite based quite quickly, actually. And here Elon is. No more white guilt. Gen Z is done apologising for the history that they didn't write. Yeah, we were never a fan of it either, but to be honest, they weren't bombarding us like they have been for you guys. When we were young, it didn't come up. They just didn't bombard us with it. And it was only in about the 2010s when it started becoming a very salient political issue. And then I started my channel, and the rest, I guess, is history.
Yeah, you can only ask blast people that sort of propaganda for so long before you finally have a generation for which they have no living memory of any of it. And Gen Z and Gen Alpha especially, they have no living memory of a lot of this. Mainly because they're all 21st century people, and they've just realized from the get-go, 20th century has nothing to do with us. We're not responsible for this, so we're done apologizing for it. And it's also the thing of choice for youthful rebellion. All generations have something which they rebel against. It just so happens that Gen Z has found their target of rebellion and happens to be a good one. Their rebellion actually tends to be something for good. Perhaps even the Great Rebellion. Still want me to play that game, don't you? Well, I'm always accepting gifts of games from people, and I do try to get to them when I can.
But a lot of the younger Gen Xers are very quick to go, fuck you, fuck you, I'm not having it. And Elon's clearly one of them. And I tell you what, there are going to be a lot of people on Twitter who want to pat themselves on the back. Elon Musk, 20 million views to his, how many has he got now? 229.6 million followers, quote, remigration is the normal position. Oh, God,
Also the moderate position, as Jack Posobiec points out. In a recently released poll here in Denmark, 7 out of 10 Danes support the so-called far-right idea of remigration. We can only put up for so long with the invasion of our countries by complete and total strangers before we start to rebel. We will not be replaced. We will not be genocided out of existence. We will not only survive, but we will thrive and flourish once again. Not only in our homelands, but also to the far reaches of the diaspora. We shall be free again, and we shall be great again.
You love to hear it, don't you? That is an incredible, absolutely incredible tweet from Elon, by the way. And then he's even got to this one. This isn't this woman's own take. I'm sure this is an old 4chan thing. But we are witnessing the greatest act of cuckoldry in all of human history, an entire civilization willing to give away its land, women, and children because the alternative is being called a racist.
Given the choice, I would gladly take being called a racist. I don't want to give away any of those things. So call me a racist. Plenty of other people have. It doesn't affect me because those people calling me such words, they don't matter. I don't even necessarily view them as people. They're just topographies of ignorance or demon forces of the ungodly. That's all they are. They don't matter. My people, though, my land, that's what matters.
And Elon has got, yes, we need to save America and the entire West. And what he is saying there is essentially what Nick Fuentes was saying on Piers Morgan. I don't care if you call me a racist. We need to stop caring if they call you names. The Rupert Lowe position. I don't care. I do not care what you call me.
The J.D. Vance position. I don't really care, Margaret. It is the perfect response. Someone says, you're a racist. I don't care. Well, that's bad for you.
Because this belongs to ours and our nation and our people, and it doesn't belong to them. They have countries of their own. And we need to start being particular, parochial, and possessive over these things. These are ours, not theirs. And it's okay for us to say that. It's okay for them to say about theirs. It's okay for us to say about ours. And it doesn't mean that all brown people are bad. It doesn't mean all white people are good. It doesn't mean anything beyond. We have the collective claim to our lands, and they don't.
I'll go ahead and post that in chat for everyone. Give that a like.